Hi everyone, welcome to Inventive Mind. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Kayani, and if you have joined me before, you know that I'm an intellectual property and business law attorney. I do trademarks, copyright patents. I help individuals or others set up businesses like corporations, LLCs, and do business contracts, partnerships, all sorts of things. I also been in-house at Biopharma and been with a couple of law firms before I started my own practice and launched this channel last year, uh, in June or so. And today I have another interview because I'm trying to build this channel to kind of bring forth people that are doing some really cool things and doing things that I find really helpful in business world. So today we have Isabel Wen, who is actually the chair of the mentorship. What does MAPS stand for? I should have known that. We will link that information below, but she's with Women in Bio. She's chair of the MAPS program for Women in Bio. And she has a bachelor's degree in chemistry, molecular synthesis. And I do know her from a couple of networking I do a lot of networking in San Diego area, and we have came across each other many times actually through biotech networking. So Isabel, thank you for joining me. And thank you for coming, agreeing to be on my YouTube channel. So I would like you to kind of introduce yourself a little bit to the community and say a little bit about your background.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Gayani.
Thank you.
So hi, everyone. I'm Isabel Wen. I guess to kind of maybe chronologically go over who I am, why I'm here, why you should listen to me. Chemistry degree, I did that. Honestly, I think maybe a lot of you fall in this bucket too. I had a high school teacher who I loved, and it was my favorite subject, and he encouraged me to go into it because, also going undeclared was very impacted. It's probably not a good idea. So I chose chemistry, and I stuck with it. And the first couple of years was rough. I didn't know why. But eventually I fell in love with inorganic chemistry, and that kind of launched me into my nanotech career. So I was at the bench for many years as a nanomaterial scientist doing product development. It ended up being a lot of biotech, actually, and it's becoming really relevant now. If you've ever heard of those, the antibody testing, that's something that I worked on a lot in my career. And eventually that launched me into the next phase, which most recently I was the head of a life science startup incubator here in San Diego called Home Lab. You may or may not have heard of it. They're a little bit under the radar, but I was heading multiple sites. We had at least 15 startups, 100 different residents, and I left that position unrelated to anything. They're still around. They're doing great, but I'm currently transitioning to the next role. I'm kind of looking for my next move, which I'll kind of talk a little bit about with Gayani today.
Well, Isabel, also I think I will ask you to what does MAP stands for, since I kind of didn't have that in front of me.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I'm the chair of MAPS for Women in Bio's Southern California chapter. MAPS stands for Mentorship, Advisors, Peers, and Sponsorship. So it's a full spectrum of different ways that you can get informal mentoring from your peers, all the way to very formal, advisor or sponsor role within your organization, someone who's like there to vouch for you to advance your career and everything in between. And Women in Bio is an international, technically, we're across North America and Montreal now, organization of mostly volunteer, if not all volunteer women, professionals who are dedicated to advancing each other in their careers. And so that's what we do. Come talk to me if you want to know more. We have our peer launch, I think, happening on April 28th, but we have rollover programs every 6 months, and programs for early stage professionals all the way through to executive and C-suite and first-time founders and CEOs.
It's I do have to say, as being part of Women in Bio, I really like this group. I find it very, informative, and the people I have met have been great. I've been part of MAPS program last cohort that they had, and I'm now going in as a leader of the MAPS program for one of the groups. And I like it because it's an open discussion. We have people of all levels of experience. We had people who are C-suite level, and we had people who were just starting off, who just was started with the company, and our people in the middle who are like doing their postdocs and transitioning. So I think it allows everybody to kind of chime in on some of the common challenges we face in these companies, so in the academic environment, and also kind of brainstorm as to how we could and brainstorm and strategize as to how to move forward and how to do things a little differently and maybe more collaboratively. So I think it's a great organization, and I'm excited to hear that the MAPS is expanding. And for those who are interested, the MAPS program that is launching, that's coming up, the launch is actually going to be a virtual launch, correct?
Yes.
So which is really cool, because in a way you might actually get people who are not able to physically come to an event, kind of at least come and check out the first meeting that's going to be on a virtual model. Is there a locality, geography that you want to mention, or is it kind of an open right now?
It's Southern California is what I'm a part of. There are MAPS programs in all of the chapters, if not all of them. So we mostly focus on San Diego, Irvine, and LA, and all the sub-localities of those places.
That's real. I didn't even know you had like a chapter with Pasadena, LA area. So that was great seeing that, because I grew up in Los Angeles. So yeah, it's good to see all these different people. So today, one of the things I asked Isabel when we were talking about it, having this chat, is to kind of, because she worked with a lot of biotech groups, she have interacted with a lot, and she have experience being the science side and in the these organizations. If she would share some of her kind of advice, talking points, and we will have like an organic discussion about how to when you're going through some of these processes and networking, how you could interact and what to bring forth. So Isabel, it's an open flow, and then I will just kind of ask follow-up questions.
Yeah, thanks, Gaini. So I guess the first subject I want to bring up is the idea of community. That's something that comes up a lot right now, especially because we're all shelter in place, we're all remote, not really getting as much social interaction as we used to. Can't physically be there. So as part of Women in Bio and part of my previous work in the incubator with startups, something that I'm really passionate about is connecting people. Mm-hmm. And so right now, there's all these free tools and great resources that we have online and ways to connect people. And it's just a matter of experimenting and seeing what really resonates with people, what is really fulfilling a need that people have. And so one of the things that I started doing with Women in Bio is these virtual lunches and happy hours. And now it's a series. And that was 3 weeks ago. We did the first one, I think. And they're really popular. It's just, I wanted to, I guess as Jenny, the chair for our chapter, says, it's the fun stuff, right? It's not another webinar that everyone's doing, just a place for people to relax, meet other people, like a good virtual substitute as best we can for what we had before, that little networking session 30 minutes before or after an event. That's kind of what people were really looking for, right? So, and I find that a lot of people love to come and share their experiences and just talk about how this has been for them, but also what's interesting, like what new things have come out of it, what ways have they started to rethink about, what they're doing or how they're working and things like that. So something I'm really interested in, and maybe ask the viewers, is about collaboration and sharing inclusiveness, this concept. And something that I'm really passionate about is using business as a force for good. And this is one of the tenets that come out of that, and that I've seen in my work as well, is, a lot of, I hate the term business as usual, is competitiveness and being closed off. and secrecy, right? A lot of like, in biotech in particular, there's a lot of fascination or romanticization, is that a word?
Yeah, I think so.
Romanticizing of IP and I guess just secrecy, you know, first to
Yeah.
product or whatever, first to market. But what I really want to see and what I really want to encourage, because this is a really long-standing tenet in sustainability and good business as a force for good practice, is being sharing and inclusive, and you know, maybe not even referring to other companies as your competitors, but as your industry peers. You know, one concept is, what I'm trying to get at is, instead of everyone having to reinvent the wheel and learn from the same failures, multiplied over all the different teams, the companies, the fields, what if people could come together and share their learning and advance society faster? So I'd be really interested to hear, you know, Gayatri, your take on this, especially as a lawyer, right? Because you do IP work, and so how
Yeah.
would that fit into all this?
So I think there's two buckets to that. You know, like there's IP as far as intellectual property for a company, and because I've been in house and I train scientists on, you know, telling them what they needed to mindful of even when they're outside in discussions, is like, if this far as IP goes, there's, you know, things you have to keep confidential for the company, and that's your obligation. And you have, you know, employment contracts that cover those obligations. But there are things that you could share, that is in the public domain. You know, like if after you file a patent application for instance, one of your projects, it's going to get published in 18 months. After it get published, what's on that application is on the public domain. So if somebody have questions about that relevant to what's in there, that's totally like fine to discuss, you know, because it's already out there. Now, if there's new improvements you're working on within that, that's not, you know, included in that, of course you want to be careful. So it's always like, you know, what you share, like, you know, when you interact with people, even when you just take it to general, when you talk with your friends, you don't share your social security number, you know, you don't put it out there, because there's a reason there, you protect that. But you could share, a lot of times people do know your birthday, because it's usually appears some places, you know. So I think you want to take that judgment, you know, you want to, there are things you could share and you can. And I do think, as far as, you know, collaboratively building communities and saying, hey, you know, we found this actually really effective. Like even going to this moment right now we are in, with Zoom and doing like remote work and remote meetings, you know, somebody saying, you know, we found that having these meetings at 10 a.m. works so much better than having them at like maybe 2 p.m. because there's the, you know, or vice versa, or having a meeting every week, every day at a regular time for, with your team right now, is something I actually heard from one of the luncheons I dropped into, which I thought was really cool. It gave people in the team a consistency, something constant right now, right? They know they're going to have a 10 o'clock meeting that they're just doing as a check-in. So, so those kind of are really good best practices for businesses, right? So there might be small teams or even a bigger company out there that have teams, and they may not be having those kind of things. And it's like having these kind of discussions, and where people are sharing what kind of processes that are working well, what kind of resources are working well, like maybe Zoom works better than another platform or vice versa. You know, you could share that, and you could also share the challenges, right? Like that, what the concerns are, and without sharing confidential information, because, you know, especially in biotech and area, there are people are usually aware of what is confidential. They should be, like, because there's all these training that goes on to train the employees on what they can present, what they cannot. So I think there's plenty that you could actually have an open discussion without being, you know, feel like you're giving away something that you shouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, that's such a fascinating topic, right? Especially because people, like for the people who are watching, like biotech is a very cutthroat, but somehow still collaborative community. It's very weird in San
Well,
Diego.
I do think it's important to realize we're like a ecosystem, right? Because like certain companies are the suppliers of like the lab equipment, and some companies are the suppliers of the reagents, and some companies are the ones who create the test, and some companies are the ones who market to the doctors. So like they all had to work together. And there are companies who have all of that in one house, but there are other companies who actually have to build those, partnerships, right?
Yeah. So
It's
I guess kind of the next point I want to get into, that this might be really interesting for our audience, is what are some examples in San Diego that
Mhm.
are really good examples of business as a force for good? So if you haven't heard of a B Corp or a certified B Corporation, I'd love to bring that up. I highly recommend you look into it. But
Yeah,
essentially, I'm bringing it up because I had no idea until January
yeah,
this year when I started to look into this whole concept. I'm like, oh, there's a whole governance around this. So
yeah.
a B corporation, or a benefit corporation is what it stands for. It's a new structure for your company, versus like a C corp or a S corp.
Expo, yeah.
In California, I believe that structure was created in 2013.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fairly new. I do know that, and it's kind of strict to get through the process, but once you get it, there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yes. Yeah. So there's also that's one end, which is the state government side, and there's another end, which is a certified B Corp, which is
Mm-hmm.
conducted through an international nonprofit called B Lab.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, when you see certified B Corp, it's referring to the certification of that nonprofit. So there's a handful of these B Corps in San Diego. Literally a handful. There's like maybe 12,
Uh-huh.
but there's over 3,000 of them internationally.
Okay.
Some really good examples, obviously, Dr. Bronner's. I'm sure you've heard of them. They do the soap. They're a really good example of B Corp internationally. They're very driven on giving back to the community. They even have their own department just
Mm-hmm.
on managing the philanthropic donation of their profits. They have a whole slew of things that they do that's good for their business. And so the main tenets of corporate social responsibility or sustainability, in this field, sustainability is redefined as not just environmental, but also encompassing, sustainable economics, sustainable business practices, treating your employees well, giving back to the community, hearing from them, or stakeholder theory, right? So having all your stakeholders have a say, and making your actions with them in mind and not just profits. And the idea is that when you give into all of these and think about all your different stakeholders with their best interest in mind, that will end up giving you more profits in the long run and make you more, make your business more sustainable and robust, and coronavirus proof, recession proof, all those things. But yeah, Dr. Bronner said they donate a lot of their profits. They also, obviously are very environmentally focused. They use a lot of organic raw materials, fair trade. They provide free healthcare for all of their employees. They
Oh,
do
wow.
volunteering. Yeah.
That's really cool.
They have a daycare assistance program. I believe it's 50% of approved daycare costs. They also cap the total compensation of their highest paid executives and employees at 5 times of the lowest paid fully vested employee. And so other companies in the news, I just saw an article this morning of some, famous media company, I'm not going to name, but
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we're, executive CEO, we're cutting our salaries by 50%. We're not taking our salary. But there's more to that. They make bonuses, they make
Mhm.
dividend, and that's $1 billion. And
Yeah.
they furloughed a bunch of their workers. It could have paid for them for months.
Yeah.
But essentially, so yeah, Dr. Bronner's is a great example. That's just some of the things that they do. Some other smaller examples that might be more relevant to you is Mission Edge. They're an HR consulting firm. They consult for nonprofits to help them with sustainability practices. So they have a new impact lab called SAIL, stands for
Oh,
Social Enterprise Accelerator and Impact Lab. So social enterprise is another new term. Just saying because I'm learning all this. I'm sure a lot of other people are learning this too.
No, I
Social,
love it. I haven't heard it that one before. So it's like I know the BCorps, but I haven't heard about this. It's really cool.
the social enterprise is just another, term for this. It's a company or a nonprofit or a for-profit that's focused on social practices, and social, again, not just meaning for people, but for the environment, your workers, the community, all these things that build up your business. And enterprise meaning that you're in it to make a profit, right? So you're balancing these two things, and you're not valuing profits over everything else, right? It's
It's tied
ecosystem.
in together.
Yeah. So Mission Edge, they have a social enterprise accelerator and impact lab called SAIL, where they basically teach nonprofits how to build a product or a service to bring in revenue rather than having to traditionally, a lot of nonprofits rely solely on philanthropic funding. So in situations like we are in today, their funding immediately dries up and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or, even when things are rosy and going well with the economy, they have to worry about, oh, well, maybe my funder just changes their mind, or they have a certain agenda that doesn't align with ours, and all these different things they have to think about. And so they're really passionate about teaching them to build their own businesses that are going to bring in revenue and that's sustaining. A couple other ones, and then I'll be done.
Yeah, and I will, Isabel did share that she's going to send me this list. So I'm going to put it below this, video for anybody who is curious more about that information, that they could grab it.
Absolutely. And I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just think that what they're doing is super awesome and I'd love to share it.
I am not, and this is not like an endorsement. So it's just discussion and information, and check it out at your own risk. So
yeah. So the next one is Mission Driven Finance. So they're an impact investing firm. So if you're not familiar with impact investing, it's just like normal, and it's somewhere between normal investing and philanthropic funding, donations, right? So not just giving away money out of the good of your heart, and you're not just investing to get returns and don't care about anything else, right? You're somewhere in the middle. You care about what the people you're giving money is doing, but you do want to return, right? It has to be sustainable and self-fulfilling. It's not just coming out of thin air. So that's what they do. They do impact investing. They work with nonprofits and small businesses. They also provide loans to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get them for a whole variety of reasons, right? Like I'm sure that you are all aware. They are a certified B Corporation. And right now they're actually doing a lot to help with people who are impacted by this. So I highly recommend checking them out.
Oh, that's cool.
And another one is ISOS Group, ISOS Group.
Okay.
They are a corporate sustainability and corporate social responsibility consulting firm in San Diego. They are also a certified B Corp. So if you're interested in learning more about, what is social enterprise, what is sustainability, what is CSR or corporate social responsibility, how do I get into that? How do I actually, measure how my company is doing and set up these practices? Those are your people. They teach you about all this.
That's really cool. How did you started going into this area of kind of, is it just curiosity driven, like while you're just kind of because you're working with like a lot of different groups? So you said, what triggered this?
Yeah, I'm personally just really passionate about it. So having worked with a lot of startups, companies, small, mid-size, I have this utopia in mind. Maybe I'm overreaching. I don't know, but just learning, like, how can we do better? How can we make sure that everyone is making a living wage? How can we make sure that people are healthy, that we're not taking too much from the environment? That's been a really long subject for 50 years, and I'm not really sure we've really gotten anywhere in this country. But in other countries, they've really taken it to heart, like Denmark, and a lot of the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Scandinavia, that's the word.
Yeah.
A lot of the Scandinavian countries are a great example of this. And the question, I've been taking a class on this is, is that just because that's who they are and we're going to do this, or is that because they're learning? Is there a way that we can somehow take a piece of their culture and integrate it in ours here in America? But I think absolutely, like, this is something I was interested in even before COVID. And then when COVID hit really hard, I'm seeing a lot of people start to bring up these questions of like, could we have done better in the beginning to treat our employees to make sure that we didn't have to, have people go on unemployment or assistance programs. And even as the business, right? Like, we're finding out a lot of businesses can't even survive if they miss a week of income. How is that a sustainable practice, right? If we expect individuals to do that, to have a savings, but we don't expect businesses to. So it's just interesting, I challenge you as the audience and Gayani and myself to think more about this. Like, what are things that you can do that are creative, right? And it's not just about the money, but also there are a lot of other things at play when you run your business to make it more sustainable and fair for everyone, and you create shared values.
I do. I absolutely believe in that model. I think you could bring value and you could do things in ethical, with integrity, and with, that benefit you and the other partners that you're working with as well. Because I think, I do think it come across when you're working with somebody what they value. You could figure that out. And if they're but I think sometimes people don't recognize it if they're not paying attention. So I sometimes tell my clients, like, the places that, like, I do things a little differently than the places I have worked at before. And I point those out sometimes so they understand the benefit they're getting because when you're changing practices, you want to keep communications open. So, like, if you have a benefit corporation or doing that kind of a model, your startup, you want to bring in people that support that cause and want to be involved, because there are a lot of passionate people out there that who want to do the right thing, who want to support these kind of businesses. I mean, I use an online investment platform for some of my investments, and they actually have one portfolio they have is like companies that you could invest in that do good. Like, you could look at what kind of things that they are putting out, and you could invest in based on your passion, which I think is really good, because then you're not just doing it for the sake of doing something. You're doing it with purpose and you're aligned with your purpose. So that's really cool. So I think we are getting to that time point. So maybe one more topic and then we will close up.
I think that I covered a
That's
lot.
a lot. That is a lot. Okay, then I will go straight into my how I do the close up is ask Isabel, what do you do for your mindfulness?
Yes, that is a great question. I read a lot about it. I know I need to do better, but on the rare occasion where I really slow down and stop, I just started getting into these guided mindfulness meditation sessions. I'm just a beginner, so I don't know how well I'm doing, but I think really just taking a moment to step away, because I'm one of those people that's always on unless I intentionally take the moment to step away from the computer, whatever I'm doing, and just be and breathe, and be appreciative of what I have, especially living in San Diego. But never ever feel like I appreciate it enough. And always practicing empathy, right? And mindfulness in that way of just in every interaction with people, just understanding everyone is going through their own thing all the time, and especially now, right? So whatever that is, just being really empathetic and kind to them and to yourself too, to understand that you are also going through something. Don't compare yourself to other people, right? Like your struggle is your struggle too.
Absolutely. I think it's important to understand especially when you're comparing and you think, well, I shouldn't feel this way because I'm doing much better than somebody at that other place that's going through this. It's okay to feel what you're feeling and give that yourself that space to feel it. Because I do think a lot of times that's also a judgment you're bringing onto yourself. Like when you say, oh, well, I'm living in San Diego. Why am I, complaining, right? Well, yeah, you live in San Diego. Thankfully, yes, but there it's still okay to go and sit and kind of feel what you feel and then see what you can do about it too. Like, because sometimes your feelings are there to kind of like a sadness or something, anxiety or something comes up because there's something underlying that you haven't been paying attention to, and it's kind of that deep dive to figure out what that is. And I think meditation really allow that space to kind of sit and do that. And if you're not a meditation person, like you could sit and do that, it's okay to do a walk and just, be present while you're walking. Like if you have music on, pay attention to the music and what you around you. And that's meditation. It's like bringing it down a notch, and then you keep practicing. It's like the gym, right? You just because you go to the gym once doesn't mean you're going to build that bicep that you really want. But if you keep doing it over time, you will get that, including, of course, you had to do your diet and all of that, but you know what I mean. So so I like that you're getting into guided meditations, because that's most of time I do guided meditations. And then other times when I feel that I could actually slow down, I will just sit and just quiet and focus on my breathing.
Yeah. So the one I've been following, and I'm sure you'll post the link as well, is a Calm app. Again, no
Oh yeah,
affiliation.
yeah.
It's cool. So they posted a free, I think, a landing page for some of their guided meditations and a variety of them.
Yeah, I had check.com. I use Insight Time again. No, no endorsement or anything. It's just, I find that app to be very helpful. So, I really love the resources. I think it's whichever you connect with, whatever the resource, and if you like the meditations on that app, go for it. It's like that, when you like one. It's, so Isabel, thank you so much for joining me today and having this discussion. I really liked it, like talking about best practices, and because I'm building this community for startup community kind of. I think it's important to have these discussions about having a purpose and creating that what you want with that purpose in mind. So I think that was very beneficial, and I learned few things because you know, I I haven't researched as much into that area, so that's super cool.
Thanks for having me, Gayani. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And as I said before, I will post all those links below when I post this video. And if you want to check out the MAPS program for Southern California, I will also put that information below, and you could connect with Isabel through there. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, bye.